This is apropos. Well, they're set to meet for their first and possibly only vice presidential showdown. Two-term Democratic Governor Tim Walz and Republican Senator J.D. Vance are squaring off in a TV debate to be hosted by CBS News. It's also the last scheduled debate of the 2024 campaign, potentially offering both sides a final chance to influence the millions of voters expected to tune in. Let's take a closer look at the two candidates running for vice president.
Senator J.D. Vance.
J.D. Vance was once a sworn critic of Donald Trump. He's now his running mate. The former US president and Republican presidential nominee made the announcement on his own social media network, posting that the Ohio senator was the person best suited to assume the position of vice president. Vance served in the US Marines and deployed to Iraq for a 6-month assignment in 2005. He shot to fame back in 2016 when he published a memoir called Hillbilly Elegy, a portrayal of his ordeal growing up in Middletown in Rust Belt, Ohio. It made him a household name, and he never missed an opportunity to criticize Trump. He once suggested Trump could be America's Hitler and even published an opinion piece in the New York Times, arguing he was unfit for office. But he later transformed himself into a solid ally when it became clear his past criticism of Trump was preventing his election as Republican senator for Ohio.
And I promise to all of my friends who are going to be at the State House, to all of my friends who are going to be at the state capitol, we need better leadership in Washington, D.C., and that's exactly what I promise to fight for every single day.
Elected in 2022, since then he's backed populist economic policies and emerged as a big skeptic on aid to Ukraine. Democrats, including US President Joe Biden, say J.D. Vance will bend over backwards to enable a Trump agenda.
He's a clone of Trump on the issues. A clone of Trump on the issues. So I don't see any difference.
Analysts say the pick is a nod to Rust Belt voters from Wisconsin, Michigan and Pennsylvania, key battleground states where the 2024 election may well be decided.
Highest-ranking official in Minnesota, but his persona is that of a jovial dad, as seen in this video with his daughter explaining the state's new hands-free driving law.
No, I think it's actually mostly bald men.
Cut. We will go do some of those things and report back.
Or in this video that went viral of father and daughter at the state fair.
Oh my!
It's his manner as a plain-spoken 60-year-old football coach from the Midwest that appealed to Kamala Harris when she was looking for a running mate.
Would you be my running mate and let's get this thing on the road?
I would be honored, Madam Vice President.
His attacks on Donald Trump and other Republicans as just plain weird caught fire on social media.
You know it, you feel it. These guys are creepy and yes, just weird as hell. That's what you see. That's what you see.
Walz was a high school teacher before winning a seat in Congress in 2006. He was elected as Minnesota's governor in 2018 and re-elected in 2022. He's known as an advocate for veterans and LGBTQ rights, credited with enacting tax credits for families with children and providing free school meals for all children in his state. Walz has faced criticism for moving too slowly to deploy the National Guard in response to riots after the murder of George Floyd by a Minneapolis police officer in 2020, and also questions about his departure from the National Guard 3 months before his unit was deployed to Iraq. The Harris campaign has responded to that last criticism by calling Walz a tireless advocate for our men and women in uniform.
Well, for more, we're joined now by political scientist Thomas Gift, Director of the Centre on US Politics at UCL. Thank you so much for being with us on the programme this evening, Thomas. So with Donald Trump ruling out another debate against Kamala Harris, observers are saying with the presidential race as tight as it is, this showdown is shaping up to be more significant than these kind of VP debates normally would be. What's your take?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, typically we don't think of vice presidential debates as making a huge difference. They tend to be lower spotlight than the presidential debate. Americans largely vote for the top of the ticket. Also, it's the case that the people who watch these debates are the most politically active, and the most politically active tend to already have an opinion on who they're going to vote for. But precisely because of the reason that you stated, this race is so close, 1 to 2 percentage point bump could give one of the tickets momentum and could really make a difference heading into November.
And they obviously have very different political views, very different styles as well. So who do you think is going to perform best and on which issues?
Well, I think both candidates have really been hunkering down over the last week and a half prepping for this debate because they know that it is really a spotlight. I think both of them are going to come out swinging. You know, I don't think either Tim Walz or J.D. Vance is afraid of being combative and showing their tough side. And so I do think that there's going to be quite a bit of back and forth. We've already seen J.D. Vance and Tim Walz kind of trade criticisms in large part over the respective military service. So it's hard to say who is going to come out on top yet. I think both of them are very qualified. They're very good in kind of this impromptu setting. And I do think that it's going to be a fraught discussion.
And opinion polls suggest that Walz is perhaps better liked than Vance. Does that give him an advantage heading into the debate?
I think that's absolutely the case. If you look at opinion polls, Tim Walz does have a slightly higher opinion. But, you know, I think voters who are tuning in, at least swing voters, are open to making their choice, you know, depending on who they see. And so even if, you know, Tim Walz has come off as more likable to this point, I think this is an opportunity for J.D. Vance to reassure some voters about any concerns that they have.
And you mentioned swing voters there. What kind of an impact could this have on swing voters? Are people really likely to be influenced by the running mates rather than the candidates themselves?
Right. I think it's really the case that most Americans vote for the top of the ticket. I think on the margins, these vice presidential candidates can matter, but it's really at the top of the ticket. And Kamala Harris and Donald Trump in particular, are such known quantities that I actually don't think that there are very many swing voters left. But of course, this is largely going to be about base mobilization, ensuring that Democrats get out, Republicans get out. And so I actually don't think that this is as much about kind of persuasion as it is just mobilizing the base and ensuring they turn out to the polls.
And do you think that it will help to ensure that people turn out to the polls? As you say, could the debate help swing political momentum in any particular direction, do you think, when opinion polls suggest that it is still so tight?
Well, I think a lot of this is momentum, because if we go back a few weeks ago, Donald Trump really looked like he had the momentum. Now, recently, Kamala Harris looks like she has the momentum. I can tell you in swing states, I'm actually in Pennsylvania right now, visiting my family. And Pennsylvania is going to be one of the big states that kind of determines this election. You can't turn on the news right now without seeing an advertisement for Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. You can't sort of open your mail without getting a flyer. So both candidates are kind of expending enormous amounts of money. Probably a lot of it is canceling out just to get that 1 to 2% that they think that could make a difference. And so, yeah, as we said, it's typically not the case that these vice presidential debates have a huge impact, but because we're in such a close race, I do think we have to pay attention to it.
And J.D. Vance, he's focused strongly on the economy, on immigration. Anytime we've seen him appearing alongside Donald Trump particularly, is he likely to go on the attack on these issues, do you think?
I think absolutely. I mean, he really thinks that Kamala Harris and by extension Tim Walz have, a couple of vulnerabilities. One is on immigration and the other is on the economy. Of course, there's mixed news about how the economy is faring, and a lot of Americans kind of disagree fundamentally on the general trajectory of the economic paths of the United States. But I think he's going to emphasize sort of cost of living, the fact that Americans go to the grocery store and they're paying prices that are 25-30% higher pre-pandemic. That's absolutely going to be a key talking point for him.
Thomas, thank you so much for your time on the programme. We'll have to leave it there for now. That is political scientist Thomas Gift, Director of the Centre on US Politics at UCL. Well, that is it from us for now. Up next.